There are only two schools of journalism. One is journalism and the other is stenography. Created an entity called Independent Media Foundation. And the Independent Media Foundation created the greatest concentration of media power in the hands of one individual in your country's history. There are no dearth of wonderful young journalists in this country, including in the Times of India, including in the Indian Express, including in the corporate media. There are lots of wonderful journalists. They don't have the power, they don't have the platform. In the colonial period too, Indian-owned media struggled against the giant imperialist press like the Times of India.
I think we can start now. And I hope this gathering needs no introduction for Sainath, as his name is very familiar to all of us. And most of the people who came here might be very familiar with his byline, and they might have gone through at least some of his articles. And I still remember about 10-15 years ago, when Sainath was traveling in Wayanad and I was traveling with him, and we were reporting on the farmers' suicides in the area close to Pulpalli. We went to one family, one impoverished family in which the father committed suicide. And his son, who was operating the film projector in a local theater, immediately recognized who Sainath was, and he greeted us saying, "I know him." And I read his article yesterday as translated and published by the Mathrubhumi Daily. Such is his popularity across Kerala. And as we all know, he is the founder of People's Archive of Rural India, that is compiling the realities of India, the diversities of the rural India. And also, he was the rural affairs editor of the Hindu. He written 2 books. One book, the Everybody Loves a Good Road. It won large-scale critical acclaim across the country and is still being taught in different universities on the people who have been displaced or affected by the larger infrastructure development projects. And his another book, The Last Foot Soldiers of India's Freedom, The Last Heroes, it was brought out 2 years ago. And it is still being discussed at a time when our concepts of freedom, our concept of democracy are facing innumerable challenges. So welcome, sir. Welcome to this event.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And before starting this meeting, I have to tell Sainath in a later vein. The per capita literary consumption in Kerala is very high. And normally, the summer months, we are celebrating with temple festivals before, like the Thrissur Puram. Now, in the place of the Purams, we started organizing literary festivals. Now there are literary festivals at village level, taluk level, district level, and even state level. And first time in the history of the entire country, a legislature is opening up its building, its resources, and its everything for book-loving people. So there is a per capita consumption of the literature is very high in Kerala. So in this context, I am asking you, what are your expectations about writers across the state or in the country? What you are expecting from the writers, or what the writers must do? Or is there any social obligation for these writers of our times in these critical times?
Shaji, I'd like to say something about the importance of books in our time. The Oxford English Dictionary, every year it selects one word of the year. And the word it has selected this year is brain rot. Brain rot. And that brain rot is connected with too much screen scrolling and reading from the phone, and that it means that it says Harvard Medical School, King's College London, Oxford University's Medical Science School have determined that excessive use of social media on screen is leading to serious, and these are medical studies, degeneration of cognitive ability. Cognition is deteriorating with the amount of time and this, apart from our eyesight, the amount of time we are spending on that. Another word has been given for it on the internet. One word is brain rot. The other word is doom scrolling because you're endlessly scrolling, and you learn nothing. Yeah, it's very, very important that we have some, that it's phenomenal to know that there is still such an, I was just, our honorable speaker was telling me that 166 publishers are here. That's phenomenal. And, the number of books consumed, it's just fist. It just struck me that since April last year, I have attended 3 lit fests in Kerala. Okay. One at Calicut, now one here. No, two at Kozhikode and one over here. So I think that's a very important thing. What should writers be doing? See, great, it's a big blow for us to realize that MTV is gone. I mean, our Vasudevan Nair is gone. But I think that they exemplify, that generation of writers, exemplify what good writing, good journalism, good books are about. For me, there is a simple, fundamental measurement of what is good journalism or good writing or good literature. Great writing, good journalism, good writing, good literature is concerned whether it's good journalism or good writing or good creative writing, whatever it is always engaging with the great processes of our time. Good writing, good authorship, good literature is about engaging with the great processes of our time. Now we need to ask, what are the great processes of our time? Then we can have differences on that, but I think we'll agree that the great processes of our time do not include Salman Khan and Katrina Kaif. Yeah. So, what about COVID? What about COVID-19? What about the reverse migration, the agrarian crisis, the collapse of millions and millions of livelihoods in the countryside? That is what we need to be writing about. Plus, we need to, in the current situation, where another great process is the erasure of Indian history, the erasure of Indian independence movement, struggle, freedom struggle. False heroes are being brought up. That was why I wrote that book, Last Heroes. It's about the last living freedom fighters in India. 4 of them are still alive. 4 of them are still alive out of the 16 characters. But returning to the thing about great processes of our time. The greatest process of our time today, worldwide and in India, is incredibly fast growing inequality. Inequality of various kinds. Inequality of caste, class, gender, all these inequalities. Late last year, the World Inequality Lab, in a report headed by Thomas Piketty, author of Capital in the 20th Century. The report on world inequality says of India that inequalities in our country today are greater than they were under colonialism at the height of British imperialism in 1921. That is shocking. The other observation it makes is that 90% of wealth, billionaire wealth. India has 212 billionaires as of January 1. I checked all the figures and came for you. The billionaire wealth, 212 individuals in India are worth $1,009 billion, which is $1 trillion. It's a little higher than $1 trillion. Trillion is karab, that is 12 zeros. You know, when you say that 212 individuals are worth $1 trillion, you are saying that 212 individuals own wealth equal to 1/3 of your GDP. Okay? Between 25 and 30, between 1/4 and 1/3 of your gross domestic product. That is unacceptable. It is insane. It is obscene, in fact. Now, when you have that kind of, now that wealth, further the World Inequality Lab tells us that wealth of the Indian billionaires, 90% is held by upper castes. So this is something we ought to, these are the issues we ought to be looking at.
So when you mentioned about M.T. Vasudevan Nair, I still remember about 2-3 years ago, you returned to me asking about a passage in his famous novel Kalam about poverty, how he experienced poverty in his childhood and how it is getting reflected in his work. But the thing is, across India, I think, writers and journalists are still not addressing the issue of poverty or unemployment or rural hardships. And instead, they are evoking or they are focusing more on non-issues. And also there is a question of writers or journalists that are turning subservient to the governments, subservient to the authorities or those who with the dictatorial tendencies. And in such a situation, what lies ahead, what is the role or what we are expecting from the writers, from the literary world?
See, there is, actually I say that journalism in India is now down to two schools. There are only two schools of journalism. One is journalism and the other is stenography. And 95% of what you get in your media daily is stenography. Mainly corporate stenography, stenography to power. That's what basically is happening with media. On the other hand, there is a vigorous movement towards independent media. It's very tiny, it's very small. Please understand how gigantic the Indian corporate media is. On March 31st, 2023, Ernst & Young calculated that the value of the Indian media was 2.32 trillion rupees. 2.32 trillion rupees, which is $28 billion. Mind you, that is only listed media. Media listed on the stock exchange, listed on the public order. On April 1st, that entire, even that huge figure, see, 2.32 trillion rupees value of Indian media is equal to $28 billion, 28 billion US dollars. On April 1st, that went up by $8.5 billion on a single deal of Mr. Mukesh Ambani. Mukesh Ambani's Jio and merged with Disney Hotstar. $8.5 billion deal, one deal added 35% value to the Indian media's 2.32 trillion rupees. So that became $36 billion. Already Mr. Ambani was the main owner of the Indian media. Already he was the biggest media owner. You know, when you see ETV Malayalam, it is not owned by Enadu TV. It is owned by Mukesh Ambani. 20 years ago, all the ETV channels except the Telugu channels, barring the Telugu channels, all the other ETV, Marathi, ETV, Malayalam, ETV Tamil, ETV Marathi, all these were bought over. And Mr. Ambani did it in such a beautiful way. He created an entity called Independent Media Foundation. And the Independent Media Foundation created the greatest concentration of media power in the hands of one individual in your country's history. Okay, so that kind of corporate power in media, why will they look at poverty? They're looking at profits. They're not bothered about your poverty. They're not. You have in all the major newspapers memos given to reporters saying this is not what we cover. We cover elite issues. In the Times of India in 2006, young reporters sent a request to the management, please let us cover the suicides in Vidarbha, farmer suicides. A paper called Hindu in Tamil Nadu is covering it more than we are covering it. They got a memo. The reply was a memo saying, dying farmers in Vidarbha do not buy the Times of India, nor do they buy the products of our advertisers. Okay? The elites of South Bombay buy our products. This is what the reporters were told. There are no dearth of wonderful young journalists in this country, including in the Times of India, including in the Indian Express, including in the corporate media. There are lots of wonderful journalists. They don't have the power, they don't have the platform. When you try being, it's very difficult to be independent media in India today. As you have seen from 2 weeks ago, the murder of Mukesh Chandrakar in Chhattisgarh, a young boy whom I knew, who 1 year ago interviewed me on YouTube. See, the vigorous independent media is coming in interesting ways. People's Archive of Rural India is one of them. By the way, we publish in 15 languages, including Malayalam. Please, Pari is published in Malayalam every day. You can go and look at Pari in Malayalam. The only media site dedicated wholly to rural India. But I would say that in Hindi journalism, the cutting edge of Hindi journalism is coming from young YouTubers like Mukesh Chandrakar, who was murdered in Bastar. If you look at the 2024 general elections, only people who said BJP will lose 40 seats in Uttar Pradesh, the only people who said all the polls and all that were giving 70, 80 to the BJP in UP, but a bunch of 30, 35 young YouTube journalists in Uttar Pradesh. In Uttar Pradesh. They kept telling me, sir, these guys are going to lose 40 seats. They'll be lucky if they don't lose 50. And they got it right. See what advantages there are when you have independent media. But independent media struggles. It struggles for survival. For me, all the time, even when I'm traveling to Kerala, I'm coming from the airport. Today, when we'll be traveling to Kochi, I will be on the line trying to know how to get funds for our next year. We don't take government funds. We take no direct corporate grants. We take your money, your donations, your individual random donations, and from our friends and from individuals and from foundations and institutions like universities. So it becomes very difficult. A lot of these YouTubers, they aren't able to function after a while because they can't raise the funds for it. But you are witnessing a historic struggle. In the colonial period too, Indian-owned media struggled against the giant imperialist press like the Times of India. Okay? And remember, what was the Times of India's circulation and what was the circulation of the journals of Gandhi and Ambedkar and Bhagat Singh? Nothing. Yet the moral authority they had, that was the highest point of Indian journalism. The moral authority of a Gandhi, an Ambedkar. And many people don't seem to realize this. Even in Punjab, Bhagat Singh was a journalist. That was his profession. The only Indian journalist of the time to write in 4 languages, not translations, write separately in Punjabi, Urdu, Hindi, and English. What an achievement. And he's learned the 5th language in jail before he was hanged. He learned Persian, which was an important language in the 1850s too. It was the language of the Mughal court. Right up to 1920s, it remained an important language. So here are these people. What made these journalists? Gandhi and Ambedkar, between them, have 140 volumes of collected works. What made these journalists different? They engaged with the great processes of that time. Gandhi engaged with Swaraj. Ambedkar launched the greatest fight for human dignity, a fight that still goes on today. The greatest fight for human rights and human dignity that goes on today. Bhagat Singh engaged with fighting imperialism. Every one of them engaged with a great process of their time. That is what I'm coming back to your point about this is what was needed.
And you have been reporting about the agrarian distress in this country for long. And I still remember your reports from Vidarbha, your reports from Anandapur, your reports from Wayanad. And now I'm asking, what is the situation, the current situation? Because now nowhere we are seeing too many reports of farmers committing suicide. Whether the media is underreporting the farmer suicides, or the number has decreased, or the government is covering up the real data. What is the reality?
It's not that the media are underreporting. The media are reporting whatever the government wants them to report. That is what the media are doing. They are stenographers. Okay. What is really happening is that the methodology of counting farmers' suicides has been destroyed by this government. I'm not saying that the previous government was innocent. Even in the time of the previous government, there was a lot of mischief. But there are 2 sets. You see, the data for farmers' suicides comes in National Crime Records Bureau. NCRB data puts together. This is very important data because it comes from every police station, every police thana in the entire Indian Republic. Now, suppose what district are we in today? In Trivandrum is its own district? Yeah. Now, every year, every police station in Trivandrum will file its data with a body called District Crime Records Bureau. Then every District Crime Records Bureau will file its aggregated data to a body called State Crime Records Bureau. And every state will file its report to a body called the National Crime Records Bureau, which had no stake and no reason for mischief. It was collating the data from the police stations. Whether farm suicides, rape, murder, burglary, all these things come under National Crime Records Bureau. Now, after many years of reporting on the farm suicides using the National Crime Records Bureau, the then government got very alarmed over it and state governments got very alarmed over it. In 2010, Raman Singh, Chief Minister of 2011, Raman Singh, Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, and Mamta Didi in Bengal declared not a single farmer can die when we are Chief Minister. So they started filing zero figure. Bengal, which had 850 suicides per year, farmers, For the next 7 years, next 5 years, it filed 0. Next 2-3 years, it filed 4, 10, something like that. Chhattisgarh was having much smaller state. 1,555 farmers' suicides for 10-year average. Suddenly, they start filing 0. 5-year average. And then they start filing 0. In the 2013 National Crime Records Bureau report, 13 states and union territories filed 0. Even then the numbers were rising. Even then the numbers were going up. 1,50,000, 2 lakh, 2.5 lakh. But then Mr. Modi came along and sorted out the problem completely. Yeah. First, they didn't publish the report for 2 years. On the complaint of Gujarat state, which said our numbers are being exaggerated. Okay? So it got held up. Then they made severe methodological changes. Severe methodological changes. By the way, the statisticians of NCRB, who were very good sources and friends, blamed me for all that has happened to the data. They said, because you are writing about it, government is changing the methodology. Okay, then they literally slaughtered suicide data from 2014. They started playing with definition of farmer, agricultural laborer. They broke it into many categories so that the numbers look smaller. Okay. In Maharashtra, Mr. Vilasrao Deshmukh got a report where there was a column, farmers' suicides and farmers' close relatives' suicides. What column? Farmers' close relatives' suicides. This was a column in the... I met Mr. Deshmukh. I said, I think we should have farmers' close friends and neighbors' suicides also. You know?
Who are the friends of farmers?
You'll make the number you'll even make the number smaller. So, see, up to 2014, there were errors of omission. You left out women, Dalits, Adivasis. Those were a reflection of our social prejudices. Post 2014, you have errors of commission, where we are actively fouling the methodology. Today, the data after 2014 cannot be compared by any statistician with data for 20 years previous, because they have mauled and destroyed the data, the methodology of counting. Now, I will give you one simple personal example of what has happened to farmers in the last 40 years. I think it's the best example I can give you of how the situation has deteriorated. In the mid-1980s, when I used to visit a farm household, okay, what was the first thing I got in the household? A glass of fresh milk. Anywhere in the country, they would give me a glass of fresh milk. Okay? In Andhra Pradesh, my original home state, though I was born and brought up in Tamil Nadu, in Andhra Pradesh, they would give me a glass of fresh milk in a silver tumbler. That silver glass was a statement of the prosperity of the farmer. It was a statement of the farmer that we are doing well. It was his status symbol. Okay, this was 1980s. Then 1991. The silver tumbler has gone and a stainless steel tumbler has come. By mid-90s, the stainless... In Maharashtra, by the way, they used to give you 2 cups of milk. It's a milk belt, Western Maharashtra. When you came to the farm, they'd give you fresh milk. When you left, they would give you another glass of fresh milk. By mid-90s, that steel tumbler had gone. It was a broken piece of crockery, cup and saucer, chipped, bought second hand, wherever. By 2000, the milk was gone, you were getting chai. And each stage, the amount of sugar reduced. See, in the countryside, I hate it, but the fact is that people in the countryside, when they give you a cup of tea, they put too much sugar as a sign of affection. It kills me, but you have to drink it. Okay. The amount of sugar also reduced with each decade. And by 2004, there was no more milk, no chai. By 2002, there was black chai. No milk. And by 2009, they were giving you the black chai in those plastic cups which you get on the railway station. That was it. From silver tumbler to plastic cup. In 2018, when there was a milk agitation in Maharashtra, I called on the freedom fighter, Ganapati Bala Yadav. He's there in the book.
Yes.
By the way, the book is Last Heroes. It's in Malayalam, translated by my dear friend Shaji. When I called upon him, Ganapati Bala Yadav, I was leaving the farm and he gave me a glass of milk in an aluminium tumbler. Okay, he's a better off, prosperous farmer. But others gave you plastic cups. So that is the decline of the farm economy. You can see in the metaphor of the tumbler.
Yes. And across India, the farmers are in trouble, they are disappointed, they are angry. And now protests are mounting in Punjab, in Haryana, in Maharashtra. My question is, why this anger, why these protests are not getting translated into political action, and that is not getting reflected in the elections? And why it is not making any change in our democracy?
I would differ with you somewhat on that, Shaji. I think that if you look, your media, again, never told you that the farmers' agitation at the gates of Delhi, that was the largest peaceful, organized, democratic protest in the world. And it was organized at the height of COVID. 720 farmers died in those camps. They died of COVID. They died of police brutality. They died of of hypothermia. Delhi, by the way, yesterday touched minus so many degrees. They faced the worst winter in 40 years of Delhi. They faced the worst summer in 10 years. They faced a terrible monsoon, but they stood there and taught the rest of us the meaning of the word resistance. They taught us the meaning of that word. Second thing, it did reflect in the elections several times. In 2004, the entire media were telling you what a great guy Chandrababu Naidu is, whether he'll get 3/4 or 4/5 majority. He suffered the biggest defeat in the history of Andhra Pradesh electoral history because of the farmer anger. Andhra Pradesh was then thought to be the worst affected state, and he was completely in collusion with the multinational seed companies and other pesticide companies. So that happened. S.M. Krishna was defeated in Karnataka by the same reason. 2005, 2006, Shaji, you saw the change in Kerala as a result of farmer distress in Idukki, Wayanad and elsewhere, Palakkad and elsewhere. In 2024 elections, remember, the BJP lost 70 constituencies, 40 of them in Uttar Pradesh. I can count for you 70 constituencies where the BJP lost, where the farmer vote was very substantial. The other thing about farmers is they are urban connected in one way. In India, except for cities like Bombay and Delhi, every urban person, every one of you sitting here in Thiruvananthapuram, you have a brother, a father, a mother, a cousin, a grandfather who is a farmer. You are all connected to the land. Only Mumbai and Delhi are very different in that sense. So there is a lot of sympathy when they go out on struggle. I want to tell you what scale of that struggle was. The largest struggle for justice in the media history in this millennium was Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street in New York, about 8,000 youngsters, techies mostly, occupied Zuccotti Park in Wall Street. The park owner, it's a private park. You've all heard of Occupy Wall Street. The private park owner was sympathetic to them. He did not ask them to vacate. He did not ask them to leave. But the mayor of New York told NYPD, New York Police Department, throw these fellows out. In 8-10 hours, the greatest protest in American history in this millennium was dispersed. They lasted 9 weeks and they were removed in 8 hours. Your farmers lasted 54 weeks without bending. 720 of them died. But they don't give in until the laws are withdrawn, which was their demand. Now today, the same laws are being brought under the guise of draft agriculture marketing policy. The very same measures that were in those laws are being brought back. Therefore, you are seeing the tension. Also, remember that that was an anti-Adani, anti-Ambani agitation, which your media cannot tell you because they own the media. Why will the media tell you that slogan at the camps is every second slogan is against Ambani or Adani? But they couldn't report that to you. Yes. And the TV channels did not show you that. Now, here's the thing. When you have such a great movement, great process of your time, and completely shut out of the media, yet they fought, and you can see the impact they had in defeating them. Now what the newest mischief? They are forcing the farmers to go back and sell to the same Adani, same Ambani. You know how? Punjab is the center of the public distribution system. They are the biggest suppliers of grain to the public distribution system. Every year in the season, there are special grain trains. There are special railway trains that carry the grain from Punjab stockyards to Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, elsewhere for distribution in the public distribution system. This year, they delayed the trains for 2 months. They would not start the trains for weeks. So the farmer is left at the stockyard, desperate to sell. So who does he sell to? Same Adani, Ambani. Those who have silos and storage space, they sell. In the last 20 years, very few governments have added even 1 square foot of storage space for agricultural produce. Instead, they are renting. In Punjab, they rented, you can go and see the stockyard, the godowns of liquor manufacturers are also being used for storing grain. So that mischief is to force them. Their law failed. They had to withdraw the law. So they're bringing it through the back door coercion.
Some time back, you said you have been suffering from an incredible malady called hope. Are you still hopeful about democracy in this country? About the people coming back of India as a vibrant democracy where dissent can have its place? People can fearlessly express their opinions.
Absolutely. I don't think there is in my mind, there is a question about that. But I will caution you on one thing. Do I believe things will get better? I believe things will get better. I believe, however, that things will get much worse before they get better. That is what is going to happen. Yeah, that is surely an issue. Second, I'm saying that very example of the farmers' agitation. Resistance is so central. Dissent and resistance is so central to democracy. If we don't have dissent, if we don't have resistance, you don't have democracy. But the bigger problem is the inequalities which are destroying democracy. You know, when if you and I are contesting an election, yeah, and you have 10 lakhs to spend, yeah, and I have 500 crores, there is no contest. There is no contest. Right? So that is the huge, the sheer inequalities of the billionaire class. Let me tell you something about the Parliament of India. In 2004, we brought electoral affidavit in which you stated your wealth. We trust you, of course. To be honest, what is your wealth? In 2004 electoral affidavits, self-declared crorepati's made 33% of Parliament Lok Sabha, 32% of MPs were crorepati's. In 2009, 53%, 52% of all Lok Sabha MPs were crorepati's. In 2014, 81% of all Lok Sabha MPs were crorepati's in 2019. Okay. Sorry, 2014. 2019, 83% of all MPs were crorepati's. 2024, the figure I am told is 88%. Now, these are the people who are going to represent the poorest people on earth. Think about it. Think about it. It's a very serious problem. Democracy is threatened by the incredible inequalities, and impunity, abuse of power comes from having those levels of inequality. Those levels of inequality enable me to be a tyrant. And incidentally, the connection between media, democracy, and power, you can see what's going on in the United States. Okay? Mark Zuckerberg surrendered openly to Trump 3 days ago. He stopped the fact-checking program in Facebook. Jeff Bezos, owner of Washington Post and Amazon, the largest corporation in the planet, Jeff Bezos stopped the Washington Post editorial which was going to support Kamala Harris. The owner of Los Angeles Times, another big IT trader person of Korean origin, I think, he also stopped the endorsement of Kamala Harris. Lots of opinion writers in Los Angeles Times resigned from the paper. Elon Musk, he is more Trump than Trump. So you're seeing this complete convergence of media power, information power, political power, and the base of that is the incredible economic power of corporations. The great challenge of our time, whether for farmers or anyone else, it is the fight against corporate power.
Okay. Then you said about how journalism is degenerating into stenography. But at the same time, there is another issue that is related to PR, the public relations. And across India, and it is applicable even in Kerala, the governments, like in the case of industrial groups, like in the case of corporates, governments are also effectively using PR. And PR is now masquerading as journalism, and it is causing a kind of mass distraction of the people from the real issues. Have you viewed it?
Well, actually, I think that the governmental interventions are puny compared to the corporate interventions. Yes. Who has the maximum amount of service? Look, one private owner owns 40% of the value of the Indian media. Governments will do what he says. Governments are subservient to him. That same man, please, did any of you see critical editorials in the national press when he spent, when that man spent $600 million on his son's wedding? There were many admiring articles. And on social media, there were lots of tweets which were paid for. One of the influencers wrote, I declined. They asked me to pay. They offered me 6 lakhs. I think maybe she was protesting that she was not given a good price. But she said that I was offered 6 lakhs to praise the wedding. The amount of praise of this obnoxious wedding. But by the way, according to me, the wedding was a very shrewd, and mind you, the wedding of $600 million takes place in Maharashtra, Mumbai, in the very state where every year tens of thousands of weddings are failing in farmer families because they cannot afford the wedding. Every year, thousands of families are cancelling their weddings or going bankrupt. Yeah. But according to me, the Anant Ambani's wedding was a very shrewd business investment. Okay. Large corporations are all the time getting leases from government, getting contracts from government, because all the wealth of this country is actually owned by the public of India. Yes. Okay. Oil and natural gas, mining, minerals, seas, high seas, oil exploration blocks in Bombay High. So suppose you, Shaji, are the CEO of a conglomerate with 500 companies. Every day your CEOs are sitting in the ministries working with secretaries of government to get the best contract. Now let's say all of you are secretaries of government. Let us say you are Secretary Forest. They gave 79,000 acres of Hasdeo forest to one individual. Let's say all of you are secretaries of ONGC, secretary of oil ministry, secretary of forestry, of mining, of mineral. You watch who all come to Ambani's son's wedding. From the Prime Minister to every important celebrity in the country, every cabinet minister, half the chief ministers in the country are there at that wedding. Tomorrow, when his CEOs come to talk to you, are you going to say no? Will you dare to say no? That wedding was a very shrewd business investment. He spent 0.27% of his wealth on it. He will make 4 times, 3 times that in the coming 2 years.
Okay, I think we are reaching the final phase of our conversation. And before ending it, I wish to ask you about the reverse migration happening across the country. How it is affecting our urban areas, or it is causing any discomfort to all the privileged people in the cities, or how it will influence the country in the future.
You're right, absolutely, that it got covered in the media because it is affecting the privileged urban people. That's why it got covered in the first place. It got covered because of that. How many bleeding heart editorials and anchors talking on TV, why are they going back? Millions of people went back to the villages, crores of people. Why are they going back? Why are they going back? They should stay here. That is the wrong question. The real question is, why did they leave their villages and come here in the first place? The answer to that is 2 words: agrarian crisis. We did not cover that. Most privileged people in Mumbai do not know the native village. They know, ye Bihar se aaya, or he is from UP. They do not know which village he came from, what his family is doing back in the village. They never bothered to ask. When they started walking back to their villages, then all of us were howling because we lose our driver, our nanny, our maid, our mali, our gardener, our mochi, our cobbler. When we lose these cheap services, then we are getting very emotional about it. But the fact is that the reverse migrations were incredibly high. In 25 days of May, when they introduced the labor train, remember, Shramik train, in 25 days, the railways carried 9.1 million human beings. Imagine in the whole year what happened. It is in crores that, and many more millions walked back. They didn't go by train. They couldn't afford it. We charged them the ticket fee. So this is, I'm saying that the effect of that is still to be understood. We can see the demand on the NREGS, Narega, growing in the countryside. I think that that is going to be one of the biggest demographic puzzles, riddles, and it has proved. I just hope that we now renew our association with rural people differently in a progressive way.
Okay. Now we are running short of time, and that is why we are not able to take questions from the audience. So now we are winding up, and this venue is going to have another program. Thank you very much, and I hope everybody has enjoyed this session well. Thank you very much.